Hi everybody, my name's Neil. I have a 2021 Winnebago Revel that I bought in August last year. Obviously that's built on the Mercedes Sprinter chassis, and we've recently done a big upgrade on the suspension. Upgraded to Van Compass's 6.5 system, which features the new Falcon 0.5 adjustable shocks with their adapt system. So I wanted to do a video today. It's probably not going to be quick. I'm kind of a guy that likes a lot of details, so that was the point of me doing this video, was that there weren't a lot of details available when I was researching this new system, and also when I was going through installation and kind of learning how to use it. So I felt like I'd learned a bunch about it throughout that process and wanted to share it with you guys in case anyone is thinking about that system or just kind of curious how it works, etc. So Van Compass does a number of different suspension upgrades. They call them stages, so there's kind of like stage 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm not going to really get into the details of those. You should check out their site. The part that I'm going to talk about today is the 0.5 part, which is these new Falcon shocks with the adapt functionality. So I think it was last year Van Compass swapped from Fox shocks to Falcon. They did a pretty good video explaining why. You should go check that out. But the previous Falcon shocks, I think they were the 0.3 ones, they brought independently adjustable dampening to the range. That's a dial on each of the 4 shocks that you could adjust the suspension dampening, which is a super cool feature. And the new 0.5 system really just kind of adds a bit more functionality to that. I don't think there's anything kind of mechanically different with the shocks. I don't think they necessarily offer any better ride performance, but they do offer a different way to adjust them, which was pretty appealing to me. So what is new with them? Well, I think there's a couple things. They have moved some of the adjustability to an in-cabin switch. And there's also a control module, which is the adapt unit, which will detect motion as you're driving and will automatically adjust the suspension dampening depending on your driving style. And that partners with a Bluetooth app, which allows you to kind of tune it further to your liking. So why did I choose this system? Well, you know, it's kind of hard to choose because I think there's a couple different things going on. Agile Off-Road obviously does their RIP package, ride improvement package, I think it's called. And Van Compass offers their range. And honestly, I don't think you can go wrong with either of them. You'll hear people on the Facebook groups or online talking about both. I think they're both excellent upgrades, and I have a friend that has the RIP kit. He absolutely loves that. I ultimately went with the Van Compass choice for a couple of reasons. One, I live here in the Pacific Northwest and I wanted to support a local company. The Van Compass is not too far away from where I live. Secondly, I think they do a really good job of demonstrating their products online, and they've done a few videos about these new kind of Falcon shocks, and you know, their logic for swapping and so on resonated pretty well with me. But thirdly, and honestly most importantly, I really wanted to have adjustable shocks, and I loved the idea of being able to have that adjust automatically or be able to adjust it in the cabin. Typically for me, a lot of how we use our van is going to trailheads, camping kind of out in the wilderness. And so because we live in the city, I typically get in a van, we drive along the highway for some amount of time, then we hit some forest roads, some of which can be pretty gnarly around here. And so I do need the ability really to adjust for different driving conditions. And the idea of having that in the cabin was a big plus for me. I do have onboard air, and we do deflate the tires sometimes, but what I found with that, even though it's awesome, if I'm going to get to, you know, a forest road and it's only 3 miles to the trailhead, it might be really bumpy, but I'm kind of, you know, not always willing to get out, deflate the tires, deal with that. Maybe it's cold, maybe it's raining. And so having the ability to adjust the suspension at a click of a button, I knew I would use that more. I've also had vehicles in the past which have had both manually adjustable suspension dials, like the 3.3 system, or a switch in the cabin, and personally I just found that I used it a lot more if it was more easily adjustable. So let's talk about the adjustability of this new 0.5 system, because when I was learning about it, I did find it quite confusing. There's actually what I'm going to call 4 different stages of adjustability, and I'm going to go through them to try and explain the system as best I can. So first of all, when you order the shocks from Van Compass themselves have to make a decision, I guess, in the way that they sort of manufacture them or adjust them. And it's a binary decision. They're either going to ship them to you in what they call like a light/medium config, or in a medium/firm config. So it's just a binary decision that they make, and it's based on the weight of your vehicle. So obviously I have 2021 Revel. I've actually added quite a bit of gear to it. You know, I've got a bunch of owl gear on the back. I've got the box, the B2 carrier, the spare tire, the ladder. We also had full water, full gas. And when I weighed my van, it was 8,500 pounds, which Van Compass said they would still ship that in the lightest form, actually. And so they actually told me the only reason you would want it in the sort of firm sort of setting that they would send would be if you're at or even exceeding the sort of gross vehicle weight limit, which almost nobody has going on. So yeah, that's the first choice. It's actually a permanent choice, so they don't really want to ship it to you in that really firm setting unless you're sure you need it. So 99% of people are going to have it on this light medium when it's shipped to you. So the second stage, what I'm going to call, is the installation decision. So when it's installed, they actually choose, I think they call it the SP2 is what Falcon calls it. And this isn't really a great angle actually, but there's an installation decision to be made between light and medium, and the way that they do that is the shaft of the shock that is under there, you actually twist it, I think, you know, clockwise or counterclockwise at installation to choose between light or medium. And again, with my van, it was installed at light, and that was on Van Compass's recommendation. They said about 8,500 pounds is about the limit between that decision, but their van that you'll see in the videos, their kind of big badass red van, is also about the same weight, and they have that installed on light. So the next stage of adjustment is this dial that you can see here on the front shocks is a little tricky to get to. If I go to the back, you'll see it's much more visible. And so this dial is pretty similar to what you'll see on the 0.3 versions. You can see here it's a dial between 1 and 8, where 1 is the softest and 8 is the firmness. Now the important thing to realize about this dial is what you're actually doing here is you're setting the firmness for the firm setting. Now I know that sounds odd, but it will make more sense when I show you the inside, because essentially the switch inside allows you to swap between soft and firm. And so soft is just the softest setting it can go to, and then firm is whatever's on this dial, right? So I have mine right now set to 8, which is the firmest. Obviously I'm still learning this system. The reason I have it set to 8 is because I was near the limit, as I mentioned a minute ago, between the medium installation SP2 setting, and so I figure I actually probably do want it quite firm, but also because I'm getting used to the system, I wanted to experience the biggest delta between soft and firm, so I dialed all of these up to 8. Obviously they're individually controllable as well, so if you wanted to adjust front to rear, you could also do that. So now I'm going to show you a video that I captured yesterday, which was us driving to show you the inside of the van. Okay, so we're now inside the Revel, and I wanted to show you the app and also the switch. So it comes with a pretty decent in-dash switch with 3 different settings. There's soft here on the bottom, firm in the middle, and the top one is auto. So soft is of course the softest setting that the suspension can go to. Firm is actually adjustable on the dial, which is on each suspension strut between 1 and 8, and auto is going to automatically switch between soft and firm depending on how you have the app calibrated. So now I'm just going to show you the app. Try and get it in focus there. So first of all, when you get it, you have to actually calibrate it. So there's a button here called recalibrate. It's pretty simple. You just have to start at a standstill, you accelerate to 15 miles an hour, apply the brakes fairly heavily, and that's it. It takes all of about 30 seconds. Then you've got the main home screen here. What it's showing you here is you have on the top the acceleration G-force, on the bottom the deceleration, and in the middle you have the lateral side-to-side G-force. This is all connected to Bluetooth to the control module, which is mounted under the driver's seat, and I assume it has some kind of accelerometer to provide this data. So when I go to the config screen here, you can actually set up different profiles for different driving styles, and this is for the auto mode. So again, on the switch you can either just lock it into soft or lock it into firm, or select the auto mode, which is where these then come into play. So there's a factory default up top, and I have two presets that I have just created. Excuse me. I don't necessarily recommend these numbers yet. I haven't played around with it long enough to do so, but they're following the philosophy that Van Compass shared with me around how they have their van set up. So the way they think about it is, on the road, you typically want to have a low G threshold and a long application time. So what that means is that it would trigger the suspension to go from soft to firm at a fairly low G threshold, but it would stay on the firm setting for quite a long time. And the reason you want to do that is because if you're going to enter a corner, or if there's a gust of wind, you want it to respond fairly quickly, i.e. not wait until the G-force is too high. And you also want it to last quite a long time, because the gust of wind probably means that it's more than a split second, as does a typical corner. Now the off-road setting I have here is actually kind of the opposite. So you have a higher G threshold and a shorter application time. The thinking here is that you want it to be soft the majority of the time whilst you're off-road, but if you hit a large bump or you had a lot of side-to-side sway, you would want it to kick in to firm, but you wouldn't want it to last very long. You'd want it to quickly go back to the soft mode. So yeah, they're the kind of configurations I have right now. I look forward to playing around with it more. I'm not exactly sure whether I should set all of the G thresholds to be the same. It seems like the lateral one obviously has more range because of cornering, so I need to play around with those a little more. But what you'll see is, if I just put this back up here, so again, if it's in soft, it's going to be grey. If I put it into firm, it's going to go to red, and then auto is going to have it's going to switch between those two modes. So now you'll see we're kind of stuck in traffic, so this is not a good demonstration really, but we're in grey, but then yeah, as we brake heavily, it obviously surpassed the threshold there, went into firm. Do you want to do some side to sides? Yeah, there you go. So we swerved side to side a little, it's gone into firm, and then if we stop and go back to more normal driving, it will go down back to soft after that time threshold. So yeah, that's how the app works and the interior switch. So what are my thoughts so far on the system? Well, I've only had it about a week or so, driven a few 100 miles now, all of it on road. Haven't been off road yet. Most of the trails that I would normally go on are covered in a lot of snow at this point. But I would say it's a huge difference. It really is. I've been on a lot of windy roads, and the van just feels completely different. It's very seated, very balanced, and just grounded now. You particularly notice that on any cornering. There used to be this kind of like fairly unnerving body roll, and I personally found myself being very conservative when I enter in corners. That's just kind of gone now, and it inspires a big confidence upgrade in the van's road handling. So I've been super impressed with it so far, and look forward certainly to trying it more off-road. The adapt functionality is actually pretty awesome as well, because although I've had adjustable suspension on vehicles before, as I mentioned, this is the first time I've had something that will actually adjust whilst I'm driving. Normally you have to choose a setting and you're kind of in that setting for the duration of your journey. What I love about this system is it allows it to stay soft whilst you're driving along, but it'll quickly turn to firm when needed. And I've tuned the numbers a little more since the video yesterday, and it's really quite cool to see how that works. Couple of other things I just want to add about that system. When you get it installed, obviously you can install it at home or professionally. That's a choice that you need to make. I am not really skilled enough to do it at home, so I had mine professionally installed. Bear in mind it's a super new system, and probably will be the first time the installers have installed it themselves. So that's something to kind of bear in mind, and it's a good idea to make sure that they really know how the system works, and particularly how to test it. I actually had an issue with mine, not the installer's fault really, but the part of the installation process is that you connect the adapt system to, I think it's called the key on power, which is under the driver's seat. This is a stud that will have 12 volts when the engine's running, and my stud wasn't working basically because someone had cut the power to it and done kind of some dodgy electrics. I think it was probably Winnebago, because it certainly doesn't come from the factory like that. Anyway, what that meant was that the system wasn't initially getting power because of that. So if anyone wants more information on that, you can reach out. But basically the best thing to do is just make sure that the app, as I showed, is functioning properly, because that's really the only way to ensure that the switch and the electronics are actually working. So definitely recommend that. Okay, the last thing I'm going to talk about today is the lift component of this upgrade. So the 6.5 kit comes with a 2-inch striker lift kit. You don't have to get that, of course. You can get the other options, like the 4.5 comes with the same Falcon adapt shocks, but without the lift kit. Lift seems to be pretty sort of religious topic. People have very strong opinions about it. I'm not exactly sure why, to be honest. But I am going to just explain why I chose it for my van, and I think there's good reasons for and against it, and it's really up to you to kind of decide what you think is most suitable for you, and it's definitely not for everyone. For me, when I think about this van and how I use it, I really just want to protect the whole van as much as possible, but particularly the things underneath the van that are sometimes pretty exposed. So the one thing that is really important to me is the heater. We spend a lot of time camping in cold conditions. I've already had an issue where the heater broke once when it was sub-zero centigrade, and I don't really want to damage that thing. So here we've got the exhaust for the Timberline heating system, the actual heater unit, the burner is up under there, as is the fuel pump. You've got the grey water valve there, and obviously on the other side, if I just run around quickly, you've got the exhaust, which is mounted in front of the rear wheel here. It's pretty low, it's pretty awkwardly mounted. There's good reasons, I think, why Winnebago has to mount it on the side and not the back, but it's pretty vulnerable there. It's also near the tire, which you typically want to use to put over the high rocks, so that's also kind of vulnerable. Now, of course, what the lift does not do is raise the minimum clearance of the vehicle or give you any extra axle height, right? The axles are clearly just going to go from one wheel to the other, and that is not getting lifted. The body is getting lifted, but not the axle. And so when you think about the front here, that's not going to be any higher, and neither is the rear differential, which is the lowest point on the vehicle and pretty vulnerable. So in my mind, much more important than the lift is the skid plates. I have the rear diff skid plate here from Van Compass. Super easy to install, well engineered, and I would highly recommend that for anyone planning to take the Revel off-road. That is not a part of the vehicle that you want to damage. I also had, just with this upgrade, the engine skid plate installed, so you can see that here angled down. If I go underneath, you'll see that there's a solid plate there that's now protecting the engine. Another good modification to do, I think, to protect the underside of the van. Now, when you install that one, there's actually two different versions, one for a lifted van and one for a non-lifted van, so you kind of have to know if you're going to lift the van or not when you purchase that item, which was another reason I got it all done together. If you do want to lift, just get more ground clearance between those axles. Of course, you can put bigger tires on. I have the 275s here. You can put 285s on without damaging, well, not damaging, without interfering with the cruise control and etc. on these vans, but you need to take it to someone that knows how to do that. Not everyone does. So yeah, that was kind of why I went with the lift. Downsides of the lift are obviously it's harder to get into. I measured it, and on the back here I got 3 inches of lift. Obviously 2 inches from the lift kit itself. I think I got an extra inch from the suspension and the leaf spring add-on. And on the front here I got, I think it was 2¼ inches of lift. So the running board is obviously now between 2 and 3 inches higher off the ground. Makes it harder to get into for yourself and also for any pets. We have an old dog, and so now we have to kind of help her get in. It's also harder to get in the back, so I'll probably get a tug step for that. The other downside would be it raises the center of gravity somewhere, you know, slightly less than probably the lift kit, because some components aren't going higher. So that in theory will affect the handling, although I would argue that it's way offset by the suspension upgrade, and certainly haven't felt any negative effects of that. Oh, and then lastly, the cost. Obviously it's quite a lot of labor to do the lift, and so that doesn't come free. So as I say, the lift certainly isn't for everyone, but I'm super glad with the decision I made and really happy with this upgrade so far. Obviously I haven't gotten to try it off-road yet, but I'm excited to do so and excited to tune the behavior some more with that Bluetooth app. So yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you if you're still with me. I know this is a long video. I told you at the beginning I kind of like detail. And I'm hopeful that this was helpful to someone who maybe wants to know more about this new 0.5 system. Yeah, please reach out if you have any questions. I'm happy to chat to people about it. Thanks, bye.